Hey, up you bub. Okay, we're just out. Yes, hello. Okay, yes, I'm going this way. Right, okay. Just a little bit of a video just to clarify, really, from yesterday about reflexivity, and we also talked about the decision dilemma. Um, Thank you for everyone who has subscribed and that is watching this video. My hundreds of thousands of subscribers, thank you each and every one of you. I'm only kidding, I've probably got 5, but that's okay. Thank you to those. I could probably name you. Yeah, thanks for watching. Yeah, the reason I'm making this video is I spoke to a member of my family this morning, and he sent back some objections. He watched my video from yesterday and sent some objections, which I really appreciate, actually. I have a slightly different view from him, and it was regards to the numbers. It was regards to... Come on! What's that? It was regards to the numbers, and these numbers... Basically, sort of colloquially those numerology or gematria, and basically we were talking about the Ice Agent and the shooting, and he was saying how it's a psyop, and he was sort of was hinting that I'd been drawn into the psyop, and took it in, which I may well have been. What I know, so I was using it as an example to explain how. Hang on, I best go find Buster. Buster! Come on! Come on, mate! Oh, yes! Oh, there's a little sprint for you. Well done, mate. Hello. So, yeah, I was using it as an example to explain the decision dilemma and how that comes sort of direct out of the loony leftist handbook, beautifultrouble.org. And he used it as an exact example, but he pointed out how the cop that ran over had 33 stitches in his head, and how there was a number 33 behind them, and all these things add up, and these things, they're shown on the mainstream media, they're projected, and this is, the 33 is there. It's the symbology that the elite deep state use to signal to each other what's happening. Maybe. I have no doubt that they like their symbology. You only have to look at the dollar bill with the pyramid on it. I can't give you the exact Latin quote, opus, blah, 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 whatever it says. Order out of chaos. I should know that one. Yeah, and I accept that there is an element of that. However, I also think that there could be a psyop for everyone. And I think that this is the clever part of it. I actually think that I'm psyoped. Very probably I'm psyoped. You're going to get people who are absolutely sceptical of everything and won't believe, anything that they see in the newspapers, with good reason. So, if you've been shown lies consistently, the boy who cried wolf, eventually you're going to get so annoyed with it, you just don't believe anything that comes out of those media anymore. I fit into that category quite nicely. I couldn't trust a word, anything that comes out of the BBC. They've been proven to lie repeatedly, over and over again, and so I just don't buy it. And obviously that was proved last year with the Trump tape, with the Trump stitched together piece of video from January 6th, which was used in the Panorama programme 1 week before the last presidential election. So, yeah, it was very, very dodgy. There you go. It's a lovely park for walking dogs here. Every man and his dog likes walking around here. It is lovely. So yeah, I do understand how you can be caught in a psyop. So, where was I? Yeah, so this particular psyop with the Ice Agent, okay, he started to unholster his gun before the wheels started turning. this is exactly what I mean by a decision dilemma. So just as likely, more likely in my view, is that, you know, he's in a situation, doesn't know what somebody's going to do. You know, the look on the woman's face, if we can believe that you know, that's what's been shown to us from the body cam footage of the ICE officer, you know, with a bit of a smug, smiley kind of look on her face, like she knew exactly what she was doing. You know, and if you're... Come on, Buster, this way! If you're right-leaning, then you're going to sort of take that as being, yeah, she knew what she was doing and she was trying to encourage it, which is what I'm saying the decision dilemma is. She knew that by turning the wheel of the car, revving the engine or whatever, and having that look on face, she knew what she was doing in terms of she put that officer in a very... Oh dear, oh dear. Hello? You okay? Was that just rolling around in the mud or did you actually fall? Okay, I think I best cut this short and maybe get out of there. Had a bit of a fall there, didn't you? Oh dear. Come on then. So, was it deliberate? You know, sort of contemplating the idea that, you know, that they were all crisis actors and this whole thing was set up, you know, 5 blocks away from where George Floyd happened. You know, could have been 6 blocks. You know, would it have been more likely if it was 33 blocks away or 666 yards away? You know, I think a lot of the time you can make out of numbers and you see into it what you project, so if you see the conspiracy, you're going to project that into your view of it, and create your own kind of confirmation bias. So that is also possible. And yet it could actually be that you're actually spotting a pattern that actually is a pattern and that they are communicating to each other. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it. The way I sort of look at it is that could also be a grand psyop to get the likes of me that is sceptical, that sort of sees that, yes, of course, for many, many centuries they've tried to control narratives, and those that seek power over others and to control others, to benefit their own interests, of course. You know, so would they employ symbology in this way as a means of getting control, or as a means simply of signalling to other people who are in the big club on, you know, that this is a psychological operation that we're doing, so, you know, keep an eye on it, and join us, kind of thing. Yes, of course, I see that both of those things are possible. So there's this whole thing about being skeptical. So philosophy kind of begins with being skeptical. So Socrates, who's widely considered the father of Western philosophy, all I know is I know nothing. And he went round Athens showing the people who thought they knew something that actually they knew jack shit, they didn't know at all. And they executed him for it because they didn't like it. They said he was trying to corrupt the youth. So they executed him. Great. So, yeah, so that happened. But the being skeptical is actually part of, it's the questioning, it's the not taking at face value. It's to look at a thing and say, okay, is that really what's going on? And that's really sort of, that beginning with doubt is the beginning of philosophy. Philosophy, there's many different branches. Natural philosophy is what we call science. So, you know, what is the earth made of? What is the world? What is this force that makes things fall to the ground? You know, and from that we got, you know, earth, air, wind, fire, you know, the 4 elements, and then a 5th. And out of that, with more rigorous study, we end up with the elements that we know today in the periodic table. So there's a lot, you know, has come out of philosophy because of the being skeptical. It was formalised into a method, some say by Bacon. I lean towards, well, kind of biased really, but I lean towards Descartes, obviously popularised in the film The Matrix. You know, how do we know that our senses are not deceiving us? How do we know, you know, if you put a stick in the water, it appears to our senses, it appears to our eyes, it appears bent, when in fact we know it's straight. And so he said, well, is there something more reliable than your senses? Because your senses could be deceiving you. And if your senses could be deceiving you, how do you know that what you're experiencing now is actually real? So it's exactly that same view that was discussed and presented in The Matrix. So, how do you know? Well, you can't. Well, is there anything that you can rely on? Is there anything that's absolutely certain? Well, for Descartes, what you could rely on is that you are actually experiencing something. You know, this is where we get I think, therefore I am. You know, I can't doubt that I'm thinking. Well, doubting is a form of thinking. So if I doubt that I'm thinking, I am actually thinking. I think, therefore I am. I mean, he actually said I am a thinking thing, sometimes known as the cogito. Cogito ergo sum. And it's out of that we actually established something that we could be certain of, which was, and it's placed basically in a hierarchy, that mathematical truth or abstract truth is higher. It's almost like Plato's world of forms, more perfect forms. So the abstract, things like parallel lines never meet. So it's abstract. Yes, you can make an imaginary train track, run it forward in your mind and see that those lines never actually meet, but you actually start it, it's an assumption which can't be proved. You start with that assumption and then you reason out from that. That's called deduction. And mathematical reasoning or Euclidean geometry, you know, it sort of builds on that, you know, the idea that a point is the sort of single unit in space, and then the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You know, when you have 3 points together and draw a line to them, you have a triangle, and so on and so on and so on, and you get the shapes and so on, and then you basically get all the relations between those shapes, which could be described through mathematical perfect laws, you could say. And these things are actually more perfect than the real world. So out of that we get the idea of rationality. Reason is the highest form of truth. And the sense world, your senses, could be deceiving you. So it's out of that, and he was a mathematician, that the scientific method was developed. He had a famous book called Discourse on Method. And these were obviously refined over the years. And it's through this method of reasoning that we establish science and the use of experiment to prove the hypothesis that we first make. So we have a hypothesis, then we set up an experiment, and basically while the hypothesis remains unbroken, it seems, you know, it's true in all the experiments that we've done, we can actually hold it out as a provisional law. Now, basically that law then has to be scrapped and reshaped if you can falsify it. A good example of this would be Newton's laws, which were actually surpassed by Einstein, because they worked in a majority of cases very, very high predictive power, but not complete. There were times and examples where it doesn't actually hold, and where we now have Einstein, more predictive power. But as you can see, these are formalized into a mathematical equation, and the mathematics is the more perfect form of reasoning, so that's the more certain, and so it's kind of the basis for our scientific worldview. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent and a ramble, but that's to say, how do we know what's true? And it's to say that it's the beginning of skepticism, is the beginning of how we establish things in science. But then there's being over-skeptical. David Hume, the philosopher, you know, he was known as the skeptical philosopher, and he took skepticism to its outer limits, if you like. There's still certain things that you have to kind of accept as true, and you wouldn't be able to function if you didn't make the assumption that these things were true. I'm kind of like that when it comes to what we're being shown, geopolitics, through media, whether that's mainstream media, which has been proved over and over and over and over to lie to us, to create certain narratives. and as a philosopher, I try and cut through all that and try and find out the truth for myself. And I just use certain philosophical razors. Occam's razor, it's an interesting one. William of Ockham. Just try and get this right without mangling it. I'll give you the popular version is the simplest explanation should always be preferred first. Phenomena shouldn't have multiplied variables. Oh, I'm mangling it completely. But yeah, the simplest explanation should be preferred first. That's just one razor. That's just one thing you can apply to your thought, of which there are many, as a means and a way of trying to establish what you think and believe is the truth. So, with regards to the ICE officer, could well be a psyop. Could be a psyop. Could have all been crisis actors trying to portray a certain thing, trying to generate an emotional response, one side versus the other. You know, we know how useful that is to the powers that be, so could be that. But I think in this case I'm going to go for the simplest explanation. Yes, he was an ICE officer. Yes, he did pull a gun, and yes, he shot that woman in the head. I'm going to accept my eyes on this one, that there probably are certain facts, which I don't know for sure, but I am only going off testimony, video, and having to trust that that testimony is actually legit. Okay, so let's just assume that it is legit. There is a car that's smashed with a bullet hole in the windshield. There's video of hitting the accelerator and then turning the wheel. You know, the officer could have behaved differently. He was put in a decision dilemma, but could have behaved differently. Was it overly aggressive? Yeah, I think so. I think there's plenty of other actions he could have taken. Was it orchestrated? Is she still alive? I don't think so. But yeah, I don't know is the real answer. But based on the evidence of my eyes and what I see and my reasoning, it looks to me like it's a psyop, but not the kind of psyop that, the whole thing's a psyop and it's made of crisis accident. No. It's basically using the fact that the authorities actually fired in an aggressive manner on a civilian when they needn't have done. And that's evidence of the over-authoritarianism of the Trump administration, which, yeah, is also a worry. You know, why do they need to dress up all these ICE agents with these masks on? You know, and why the appearance of being so aggressive? I mean, that's a policy decision. You know, that's interesting. So you're trying to create the impression of an authoritarian police force. What's that all about? Why would you create that impression? Surely you would try and create the impression of, well, we're fair and just and equal, and we're a democracy and nice. Surely that's the way you would go. Maybe not. So yes, there's a lot to kind of debate and look at and unpick and unpack. But where I stand with it is, it looks to me like they're using this as a means of sowing division. It looks like some of the things which I've read in beautifultrouble.org, which is the Marxist praxis tactics, which they're using to generate support for their cause. And at the moment, to me, it looks to me like we're in the middle of a global neo-Marxist takeover. I mean, that sounds rather grand, doesn't it? But okay, so who are the institutions which are sat at the very top of all this? Well, we've got ones which we know are real. This isn't conspiracy theory. We know there's an organisation called the United Nations, and we know that they have Agenda 2030, which is their agenda to be, or their goals to be completed by 2030. They have 17 sustainability goals, which were divided up into more broken down tasks, 169 tasks. And if you go through them one by one, these statements, they all look on the surface very, very nicey, but these are simply the covers and the excuses for achieving what they really want. And why wouldn't the overall management structure, if you're managing a company, you'll manage that company better if you have more data, more information. You know what your employees are doing, you know what work has been done, you know what work is on their goals list to do, and you know the amount of time they've got allotted to do it. And so the more information you have, the more accurately and the better you can manage your organisation. You can predict cash flows, you can take loans and so on when you need them to aid cash flows in lean times, and so on and so on. Oh, have you spotted a squirrel? So yeah, of course you would want better management. So why wouldn't you want to? It's a natural tendency to want to have a surveillance state. It's a natural tendency of the management classes, the police, the government, councils, to have that. Of course, they're always going to gravitate towards more control. It's just in their nature. The reason why we have things like separations of powers, you know, both in the UK and in the US, is it the executive branch, the legislative branch? Yep, can't quite. Probably going to mangle it for the US. Okay, say for the Britain, you've got the King, the House of Lords, and the House of Commons. The fourth estate's supposed to be the media, which is supposed to hold the Commons to account, and well, to hold all the other three to account, really. But obviously, if you can capture that, I don't know, like BlackRock or one of these investment companies, if you can capture it all, then you've kind of got control. If you've got control of the media, you've got control of the narrative. You've got control of the narrative, you've got control of the people. That's the way it appears to me, anyway. Okay, so yeah, could be a psyop, might not be a psyop, probably a psyop. Okay, well, that's all for today. I just wanted to kind of discuss that a little, maybe try and unpack it. There's so much more to it. I do believe there is a psyop for everyone, and the psyop that's most likely going to attract and pull in and capture the truth seeker, the philosopher, is the one where it's going to be skeptical, is the one where it's going to be questioning everything. I just think you've got to be careful not to be too open-minded so that your brains fall out. And that's for me signing off for today.